Welcome back to Dr. Izad's class. As we are moving forward from the Joy Luck Club project and entering Unit 8, we will begin working on assignments that are related to a new text. That text is called The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, and there are links to a PDF version of the text under every assignment in which this text will have to be referenced. The first assignment you'll notice are the homework questions, and a Google Doc containing those questions is found here. Notice that this doc is view only, so you will have to create a doc for the assignment and respond to the questions there. You may copy and paste these questions into the doc for reference. Notice the directions on the top, which states that we are answering these questions several times. We are answering them for every 40 to 50 pages that we read, similar to the homework questions for the Joy Luck Club. You can pause the video here and carefully read the questions and leave a class comment explaining why we are able to answer these questions several times over for each set of 40 to 50 pages we read. Essentially, these questions are not specific to any single event in the novel and are general enough that any event in the story can provide the basis for a response to these questions. To demonstrate, I will model how to answer the questions with only the first 2 pages of the text we are now reading. You may notice that we can even use the exact same excerpts to provide a response to different questions. However, remember that because I'm using these pages to model the answers for you, you cannot use these pages to respond to these questions yourself. Before I model a response, I will provide a brief explanation as to what the question is asking. It would be advisable for you to pause the video after I provide the explanation of each question and leave a class comment explaining your understanding of the question so that I, or a classmate, might be able to correct any misconceptions that you may have. Also, you are more likely to understand something more fully when you attempt to articulate your understanding of it in your own words, rather than just having it explained to you. The first question here is asking about how the author uses narrative and nonfiction writing skills to relate experiences of their own lives. Before one can answer this question, one must first understand what narrative, which is usually associated with fiction, and nonfiction writing skills are. For that, I added this resource. This document contains a table that lists skills associated with nonfiction and fiction texts. When an author is writing a nonfiction text, he may be writing with the purpose of either informing or persuading, and he will use any of the skills listed in the left column in order to do so. Some of these skills we have went over, such as use of fallacies. As for the skills we have not gone over, such as the ability to use emotional appeals, you can easily look that up. Suffice it to say, they are all methods of convincing someone of a particular point of view or to take a certain action. On the right-hand side, you will find a list of skills associated with writing works of fiction, most of which have to do with the use of figurative language. So this question is essentially asking us how the author uses any skills on the left side column of this chart in conjunction with skills from the right side column of the chart to describe a personal experience he had. And already, the author, Sherman Alexie, does this on the first page of his text, where he describes a medical condition he had when he was born. This condition caused him to have too much cerebral fluid in his skull. Read the paragraph beginning with the phrase, "and brain grease," and determine which narrative skill and fictional skill from the chart he might be using. You can pause here and leave a class comment explaining how you know that the 2 skills you chose from the chart are being used by the author. Since the author wants us to understand his medical condition, we could say that he is using the nonfiction skill of including a detailed description for the purpose of informing his audience of something. And because an objective description might be difficult to follow if you are not a medical student, he uses the narrative skill of a simile to help the reader better grasp the nature of his medical condition, comparing his brain to an engine that had too much grease in it, rendering it unable to work. So he essentially conveys the severity and nature of his brain condition by being descriptive and enhancing his description with the use of a simile to make it clear as to how it affected his brain. All of those details that I just mentioned would have to be a part of your answer. For this next question, I will defer back to the Joy Luck Club. It is asking how the author constructs meaning, and meaning can be a rather ubiquitous term. We could think of meaning as a theme or message that is revealed through the text. In the Joy Luck Club, we can say that the author created meaning through the structure of the text. One student in the previous assignment argued that Amy Tan's purpose was to reveal how personal conflicts that immigrants undergo are actually incurred by their cultural backgrounds. This student argued that Amy Tan makes that clear by prefacing each character's personal conflict with a more general story that revealed the values and beliefs of Chinese culture while foreshadowing the conflicts that the characters will undergo. This stylistic choice of structuring the text in such a way mirrors the message that Amy is trying to convey, that elements of their culture of origin produce conflict later on in the lives of immigrants. When you are answering this question, though, be sure to relate your answer to a specific section of the text from the pages you read. The third question is asking why personal meaning might be found in memoirs. Keep in mind that a memoir is essentially an autobiography, but more emphasis is placed on the author's personal emotions about life experiences. This question can be interpreted as asking you how the reader might find something about the author's personal experiences relevant to the reader's own personal experiences. We can use this passage on page 3 of the text to answer this question. Notice the discrepancy between what the author is describing and how he is describing it. Why might the way he is describing it be unusual, considering what it is that he is talking about? Again, you may pause and leave a class comments. You may also read the text on this video while paused, or open up the PDF on Google Classroom. You may have picked up on the fact that he is talking about a life-threatening disease in a humorous way. As such, the reader may get the sense that, though the author is aware of the severity of his condition he had when he was born, he is now thankful to be alive. This attitude is reflected in his humorous description of his medical condition, and through that, the reader may realize that they too may have personally undergone hardship, but there's always something to be thankful for. As such, the reader reflects on his own experiences through the perspective that the author provides, and it causes the reader to reassess his own experiences. That might be one way that personal relevance can be found. The next question can be a bit similar, but it is asking about the author and how reflecting on past experiences might offer clarity for the author. We can use the same exact excerpt to answer this question. We might answer that reflecting on this past event made the author realize that he had much to be grateful for, so the hardship he faced does not nearly seem as burdensome now, which is why he can speak of past hardships with a humorous voice. And the last question I will give you a very general answer for. You just have to make it specific to an excerpt in the text. Keep in mind, the absolutely true diary of a part-time Indian would be considered a memoir, so we can approach our answer to the question by describing how certain excerpts would be different if it were an autobiography. For instance, we could claim that the excerpts we reviewed in this video would have read more like an excerpt from a textbook with a lot of medical jargon had it been an autobiography. Remember, understanding of complex topics is built, and no single explanation will magically make anyone understand everything all at once. If you have questions about any of these items, rewatch the video. Then comment with your understanding of the item or items and provide a potential answer and ask if there is any way you can improve upon your response. Explain how you think your response addressed the question, so that I or a classmate might recognize and correct any misconceptions that may be apparent in your answer to the question. And as always, if there were any words that I might have used that you are unfamiliar with, please look them up. It's just a good practice.